Well, I'm now joined in studio by Elvina Majiwa, a tobacco control advocate who was in attendance at that meeting in Panama. Elvina, thanks for joining us for this. So you're back now from Panama. Talk to me about Africa's representation and what issues dominated the African conversation.
Thank you so much, Wahiga, for having me here. Yes, I attended the COP and I was an observer at the COP, supported by civil society organizations. So the turnout at the COP, Africa was really big in terms of civil society and government, and it was really a good turnout.
What would you say were some of the key talking points that came out of that in regards to Africa?
In regards to the whole COP, may I mention that there was the tobacco endgame that was discussed in detail, as in addition to the environmental issues and human rights issues. So particularly for Africa, there was a key focus on novel products, novel tobacco products, and how to regulate them, especially in the digital era. And by novel tobacco products, I mean the e-cigarettes, the nicotine pouches. So there's a need to regulate those ones very, very closely, because there's not much information on the FCTC about regulation of such products.
Very, very interesting. I mean, one of the other big talking points that came out of that was concerns about campaigns by the tobacco sector to undermine the anti-tobacco campaigns. How big of a challenge was this as voiced by African players?
Yes, definitely. The tobacco industry keeps compromising the efforts of tobacco control champions like myself. And this is seen in, for example, misinformation about such products. So an example is the novel tobacco products. The tobacco industry passes the information that these are harm reduction products, but the truth is they are very harmful products. So such efforts, and also in addition, the tobacco industry compromises by lobbying for reduced taxes and efforts by governments to weaken regulations regarding strengthening of tobacco control policies.
I mean, I imagine discussion around supply and demand, were talked about in regards to the illicit tobacco trade. But one of the challenges is how to provide tobacco farmers with alternative livelihoods so as to, I guess, potentially limit the supply. Is that a big challenge?
Not exactly, because in Kenya, for example, we've made tremendous milestones in giving farmers alternative crops. So, for example, we give them nyota beans, which are very nutritious, and it's an alternative to tobacco growing.
And there's a market for that?
Yes, there's definitely a market for that. And also the World Health Organization really supports these efforts. Alternative livelihoods, yeah.
Okay. When you scan the continent, are the laws and policies robust enough to curb tobacco use and the illicit trade?
Yes, definitely. The laws are very strong, especially in Kenya and East Africa. We have very strong laws. The issue comes in the implementation of such policies. But I'd say it depends on country to country. And one thing that affects illicit trade is the porous borders. So, for example, in Kenya, we've really tackled that by having track and trace system.
Okay.
And it's working very well. And many countries also benchmark from us. Countries like Ethiopia, for example, have rather weak porous borders, and Ethiopia affects. So that's a key issue.
I mean, a very important discussion, and thank you, Elvina Majiwa, for joining us on the program, a tobacco control advocate who was in attendance at that summit in Panama.